Welcome to the channel, guys. I've been getting a lot of questions about the underwater camera system that I shoot on Instagram and on Facebook, so I've been sending everybody over to YouTube. I realized that the content on the channel is a little bit dated, so we're getting ready to flood you guys with some brand new content on this channel, so stay tuned. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Hit that bell notification down below for instant updates when we do put out a new video. So today I want to start out with my current camera rig system, and for those of you who've been following me for a long time probably know that I'm a Canon shooter. I have shot other camera systems, shot many other camera systems, but I always go back to Canon. And the reason for me shooting Canon specifically is Canon color. You'll hear that all throughout the photography world. Canon has the best color, and for the underwater environment, you know, the environment that I'm constantly surrounded in, it's above me, it's below me, it's beside me, it's between my subject and the lens, is the color blue. And I find that other camera systems just don't produce the color blue that I see with my eye whilst I'm underwater. So I've always kind of gone back to Canon. Now, my Canon history started back with an old Canon Rebel. When Canon introduced the live view shooting, I can't remember exactly what they called it, in the Canon 5D Mark II. I went straight to that. Now, that was a DSLR that also produced a video file. And for me, that was groundbreaking at the time. And that Canon 5D Mark II put out some of the best underwater video available at the time. So I went from the Canon 5D Mark II to the 5D Mark III, the 5D Mark III to the 5D Mark IV. And then as of recently, I've gone to the EOS R5, and that's the current system that I'm shooting now. Luckily, I was able to take with me my Canon glass. So I'll start with that lens, and then we'll go on to the rest of the camera system. The lens that I shoot primarily underwater is an 8-15L. Now, this is a fisheye lens, so it's super wide. So if I were to shoot the camera in 8mm with the EOS R5, which is a full frame camera, I would come out with a very round image. So I shoot it at 15, but one of the big advantages to this lens, if you're shooting a crop sensor camera, is that if you pull the lens back out to 8mm, you get a multiplication factor. It's about 1.6. You can just do the math. So that's going to put you back at about 15mm. So if you have a crop sensor camera and you're wanting to get that 16:9 aspect ratio on a Canon camera, you can shoot this lens and shoot it at 8mm, which is going to look like a 15mm lens. So that was the biggest advantage of it in video when I was shooting my 5D Mark IV. But I've stuck with it. And one of the reasons I've stuck with this 8-15L is I have a 15mm prime lens from Canon. And typically a prime lens will be sharper than a zoom lens, but I find that this 8-15L is actually sharper around the edges than my 15mm prime lens from Canon. So I've stuck with the 8-15L for a long time, and I actually have a few of these. And one of the bummers was when they introduced the new mirrorless systems, the EOS R5 specifically for me, was they changed the bayonet mount. So the L series lenses that I'm typically used to shooting won't fit on the new Canon bodies. So I had to get an adapter, and I bought a cheap one because at the time they were out of the Canon adapters. So I bought this Vela adapter, which I'll show you a little bit closer up with the other rig here in a second. But it works great with the EOS R5. So all of the autofocus functionality works through the adapter to the camera. The camera speaks to the lens just fine. As a matter of fact, all of my Canon glass fits this camera with the exception of my 85 1.2, which is a bummer because it's one of my favorite lenses. But for whatever reason, that system will not fit this adapter. But all the other Canon glass fits the EOS R5. Now the R5 itself, compared to my 5D Mark IV, is leaps and bounds better. It's better. It has a higher frame rate. It's faster. It also shoots an 8K raw video internally. In the beginning, there was some conversation about the camera overheating after about 20-25 minutes of running raw footage through the camera. I mean, this records an 8K raw footage file internally, so it's not to an external adapter, although it does that as well. An external recorder, although it does that as well. It records that 8K raw internally. So there were some complaints about the camera getting hot in the beginning. It was never really a concern of mine because I'm a freediving photographer. I also shoot on scuba, and in my 25 years of being as a professional diver, I've never once shot a 25-minute file underwater. It's just not something I do. My files are typically 4 or 5 minutes at maximum before I switch up and get a different angle or whatever it is that I'm doing. So it's very rare that I ever roll that long on a file. So that was never an issue for me. So all in all, the camera has been amazing. Now you can see here that the camera is actually rigged with the base plate that goes inside my Nauticam housing, and I'll show you guys that in just a second after I tell you a little bit more about the camera. Inside the camera, I have 2 cards. I have an SD card, which is 256 gigabytes by Lexar. This is a pretty fast 1667X card, but it's nothing compared to this, which is a game changer in my estimation. This is an Angel Bird card. It's a 512 gigabyte card. It's an AV Pro CF Express card. And this card is ultra fast. This is what you're gonna look for when you wanna make sure that you don't have any buffering issues with your camera. Now this camera has a very fast frame rate. So when I'm shooting freedivers up and down, it's all the way up, all the way down. If I were just using the SD card, then the camera would buffer. It would fill up the buffer and there would be a pause and I would have to miss some of the action. But with this Angel Bird card, there's never any buffer at all. It's just constantly writing to the card and it is super lightning fast. So I would definitely recommend one of those if you guys choose to go with a camera as fast as the EOS R5. Now let's talk a little bit about my camera housing. Here it is. This is the Nauticam housing for my EOS R5. And as you can see, even though the mirrorless rig is a little bit smaller than what you would see with a DSLR body, this Nauticam housing is giant. It's huge. It's not. I don't think it's my favorite housing for freediving because it's so big. I prefer the CNC housings. They're a little bit smaller. But the advantage that you get with the Nauticam housing is the fact that the housing is so much larger. If you need to run monitor cables or any other type of accessory inside the camera, there's plenty of room inside the housing. Now you can see that I do have a CNC dome port on the camera. I have the 8-inch acrylic port. Now you can buy these ports in glass or acrylic. The glass port's a little bit larger. I think it's 9.8 inches. This is an 8-inch port. It's plenty large enough to do nice over-unders. And the advantage that I find with the glass port with the acrylic port is that if I scratch it, it's very easy to buff out that scratch. This port has been hit by multiple sharks right in the face, oceanic white tips, tiger sharks, and sharks have a sandpaper-like texture on their skin, and they just do a number to the port. And I've repaired this port over and over and over again, and it is glassy smooth and still has great optics. The housing itself is billet aluminum. There's nothing you can say about Nauticam. There's no negative side other than it's just a little bit bigger than my CNC camera. It's really well made. It's a rugged design. It's made from a big block of aluminum. And on the inside of this thing, it literally looks like a watch. It's got functionality for every button on the camera. And as you look inside here, you'll see like all the technical expertise that went into making this thing. It literally looks like the inside of a grandfather clock. It's pretty amazing. Also, in this housing, we have a vacuum system, and that system works. It's pretty simply like most other vacuum systems. I think Nauticam has got a little bit of a leg up on their vacuum system in that the cap here on the top, you just simply unscrew it. And I tell you what, let me turn the electronics on inside the camera, inside the housing, so you can actually see what it is that I'm talking about. Inside here we have a little battery, a little flat battery right there. I forget which number that is, and my eyes aren't good enough to tell you exactly what it is. But we have a little switch over here to turn that vacuum system on and off. So when you first turn it on, it's going to flash blue and red. Okay, now we're going to seal the camera up. We're going to close it up. And I'm just going to grab the vacuum pump, which comes with all of the Nauticam housings. And all you do is suck the air out of the housing. And what's happening, you'll notice here in a second, I'm going to show you, I'm going to turn around and show you the light on the back of the housing. What I'm doing is I'm pulling the air out of the inside of the housing. And then once it's all out, the camera is going to give me a green light on the back of the housing. So whilst I'm diving or preparing to dive, this green light is always visible on the back side of the housing. That lets me know that there's a vacuum inside the camera and it's not leaking. So that's an added level of insurance or safety for your very expensive underwater camera system. Now, if it were to fail, there would be a leak. And obviously you can't open the camera while it's under vacuum. So this vacuum system, this button right here, is also the purge button. So if I push this down, you'll hear a nice little hissing sound. But you'll also notice the light's flashing and now it's red. So if I were underwater or if I were getting ready to get into the dive and go diving and that was flashing, I would know that my camera has got a seal failure on it and I need to take it apart and fix it before I get in the water. I'm going to get it wet. So that's my rig in a nutshell. If you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out and leave them in the comments below. Please be sure to like and subscribe. I'm Cayman Jason. This is the way I see it.